the girl's belly started to grow bigger at an alarming speed. She went from getting pregnant to the baby growing and being born in just 20 minutes. Even stranger, when the doctor cut her belly open with a scalpel, the wound healed instantly. On the beach, children playing only took a few hours to grow into teenagers. All of this made people realize there was something very wrong with this beach. The story began with a couple, Guy and Priska, who took their 2 children, 11-year-old daughter Maddox and 6-year-old son Trent, to a luxurious tropical resort. The resort manager welcomed them in person and told the staff to bring them special welcome drinks. Everything there made them feel excited. The 2 kids had a great time and even met the manager's nephew Idlib. The next day, the resort manager thoughtfully arranged a private beach for them. It was a nature reserve surrounded by rare rocky cliffs with breathtaking views. Another family joined them, Dr. Charles, his young wife Crystal, their daughter Cara, and Crystal's mother Agnes. The manager arranged a private car to send them all, but the driver didn't take them all the way. Instead, he stopped outside the beach, made an excuse, and drove off. They had no choice but to carry their luggage and walk on foot. They crossed through a forest and arrived at a narrow path formed by cliffs. Walking through the passage, they stepped into a hidden paradise. The manager hadn't lied. The place looked like heaven on earth. Then they noticed there was already someone on the beach. Maddox recognized him right away. It was a rapper named Mid-Size Sedan, but he looked cold and distant, with blood dripping from his nose. He clearly didn't want to talk to them. Maddox and Trent quickly became friends with the doctor's daughter, Cara. They played hide-and-seek near the rocks. While Trent was hiding in the water, he didn't notice something floating behind him. When he turned around and saw it, he screamed in terror. Everyone rushed over when they heard the scream. They were all shocked to see a blonde woman's dead body floating in the water. The rapper walked over, and he didn't seem surprised by the girl's death at all. Since only he and the blonde woman had been on the beach before the others arrived, everyone naturally started to suspect him. Guy took out his phone to call the police, but he realized there was no signal there. At that moment, another couple arrived on the beach. The man was Jaron, a nurse, and the woman was Patricia, a psychologist. When they heard someone had died on the beach, they panicked and tried to leave immediately. But as soon as Jaron stepped into the canyon path, he suddenly felt dizzy. When he woke up again, he was back on the beach, with no memory of what had just happened. From that moment on, strange things started to happen one after another. The first was that Crystal's mother, Agnes, suddenly stopped breathing. Even though Charles tried his best to save her, he still couldn't bring her back. The second weird thing happened when Priska realized her kids were missing. She asked Jaron and Patricia if they had seen Maddox and Trent. The couple shrugged and said, "Aren't your kids right in front of you?" Priska looked over and was completely shocked. Her children were only 6 and 11 years old, but in just a short time, they had grown into teenagers. The rapper saw this and immediately tried to run away. Charles noticed him and thought he must be hiding something, so he chased after him without hesitation. But as soon as they stepped into the canyon, both of them, just like Jaron before, blacked out and ended up right back on the beach. Charles was sure the rapper was guilty. He pulled out a knife and slashed the rapper's face. But in the next second, the wound healed instantly. Strange things kept happening one after another, and everyone started to panic. They gathered together and tried to figure out what was going on. As they talked, they realized they all had something in common. First, each family had someone with a chronic illness. The rapper had hemophilia, Patricia had epilepsy, Charles had mental health issues, and Priska had a growing tumor in her abdomen. They had all bought medicine from a company called Warren & Warren, and then won a free vacation. Just then, someone noticed a light flashing on top of the distant mountain. Was someone watching them? At that moment, they noticed the girl's body they found earlier. In just 3 hours, it had decayed into a pile of white bones. Everyone was stunned. Normally, it would take at least 7 years for a body to rot like that. It looked like time was moving strangely on this beach. According to the speed of the corpse's decay, 3 hours equaled 7 years. So on this beach, half an hour was more than a year in normal time. This explained why Agnes suddenly died, because the beach accelerated cell aging, and she fast-forwarded straight to dying of old age. It also explained why the kids grew up so quickly in just a few hours. Just then, Priska suddenly fainted. She had a 3-centimeter tumor in her abdomen, but now her belly swelled up right before their eyes. Charles immediately performed surgery on her, but when he cut her open, the wound healed almost instantly. He had no choice but to cut again. This time, everyone helped pull the wound open, and they finally managed to remove the tumor. Sure enough, it had grown as big as a soccer ball. In the next second, Priska was fully healed, like a medical miracle. Meanwhile, Trent and Cara were lying together. When they came out of the tent, Cara's belly was huge, looking like she was 5 or 6 months pregnant. They were all shocked. Before they could even react, Cara went into labor. Tragically, the baby died less than a minute after being born because it couldn't survive the rapid aging on the beach. Cara couldn't accept the death of her baby. She climbed up the steep cliff, trying desperately to escape. But just as she was about to reach the top, she suddenly froze and stopped moving. The mysterious force on the beach made everyone feel hopeless again. Unable to handle the shock, Charles had a mental breakdown. He stabbed the rapper to death with the knife. As more people died, Jaron couldn't sit still anymore. He had to find a way to escape. Since the path through the land and the cliffs didn't work, he decided to try the sea. Ignoring Patricia's objections, he bravely swam out into the ocean. The remaining people tried to put the pieces together. Based on what they knew, they all won a vacation prize from the pharmaceutical company. Combined with the mysterious figure they kept seeing on the mountain, they came up with a terrifying theory. Everything was a conspiracy by the pharmaceutical company, and they were being used as human lab rats. At that moment, a huge wave washed Jaron's body back onto the shore. It looked like escaping by sea was impossible too. When Patricia saw her husband's corpse, she couldn't handle the shock. Her epilepsy flared up instantly, and she died there as well. After going through one trauma after another, night finally fell, and Charles completely lost control. He grabbed a knife and started attacking people. Priska reacted quickly. She cut Charles's arm with a rusty blade. The infection from the rust spread through his whole body, and he started convulsing before dying painfully. Charles's wife, Crystal, had an even worse fate. She had been a young and beautiful woman during the day, but now she looked like a walking corpse. Because she had multiple full-body cosmetic surgeries before, when her body aged rapidly, all the side effects exploded at once. She died in extreme agony. At this point, only Guy's family of 4 was left alive. As their bodies aged quickly, Guy's eyesight deteriorated fast, and Priska's hearing got much worse. The two of them looked back on their lives, all the arguments, the fights, the regrets, and at that moment, they let everything go. In the end, they held each other close and faced the end of their lives together. When the sky lit up again, Maddox and Trent were already middle-aged. They had only a few hours left to live. Maddox suggested that before they died, they should build their favorite sandcastle one more time, just like they did when they were kids. Or more accurately, just like they did yesterday. While they were playing, Trent remembered that before they came here yesterday, the resort manager's nephew, Idlib, had given him a letter. It contained a secret code that only the two of them could understand. After he translated it, Trent looked shocked. It said, "My uncle doesn't like coral." Was this Idlib's secret message telling them how to escape? They knew they were going to die anyway, so they decided to take a gamble. They jumped into the sea and actually discovered a tunnel through the coral. They swam forward with all their strength, but suddenly, Maddox's clothes got caught on the coral. Trent had to turn back to save her. Meanwhile, on the distant mountain, the man monitoring them finally showed his face. It turned out to be the driver who brought them to the beach. He checked his watch and calculated the time, making sure the siblings were already dead. Then he called the resort manager. He reported, "Trial number 73 is complete." As they had suspected, behind this resort was a pharmaceutical company's secret lab. A few years ago, they discovered the beach's strange secret. The rocks around the beach contained special minerals that produced radiation, accelerating cell aging. The radiation circle only worked one way. Once inside, people couldn't leave. Anyone trying to exit would black out instantly, so the pharmaceutical company came up with an evil plan. They held fake prize draws to bring groups of sick people here for a free vacation. Remember when Guy's family arrived at the resort and the waitress served them special drinks? Those drinks actually contained experimental drugs designed specifically for each patient. Because the beach sped up aging, it dramatically shortened their testing time. For example, after this trial, the manager excitedly announced that their new epilepsy drug worked perfectly. Patricia, who had epilepsy, didn't have a single seizure for 8 hours on the beach, which, in normal time, equaled 16 years. No one in the lab felt sorry for the innocent lives lost. They were all thrilled with their results. The manager happily prepared to welcome the next group of guests. But just as the waitress brought out the new special welcome drinks, someone knocked the tray to the ground. It was Maddox and Trent. It turned out that underwater, Trent used all his strength to break the coral, and the two of them finally escaped. They immediately found the police and exposed the pharmaceutical company's terrifying conspiracy. The souls of those who died on the beach could finally rest in peace.